Card party. It's a party with some cards.
Card party. I don't know the lyrics, but it's card party.
It's card party. We just got back from card party. Guys, what's up? It's the Card Lounge. We should have a theme song like that, like Card Lounge.
If you're a musician and you want to do a
with some cards.
Card Lounge, let us know, and we'd love to hit you up. So
yeah,
hit us up so that we can hit you up.
We need a Card Lounge jingle, definitely.
Sure, I'm down for it. And we just got back from Card Party Tampa, and it was a ton of fun.
It was a ton of fun.
A bunch of other content creators. We got to see a bunch of viewers.
Yep.
It was a fantastic time. I picked up some really cool cards. You can't see them, but these two cards I actually picked up from Card Party, so that's why they're on today's display.
Yeah, you did pick up some good ones. I picked up some good ones too. I guess we can talk about them.
Yeah, it was a ton of fun. I picked up a Bubble Mew from Bulbastores, and I picked up the EVGX from Char Chomp.
Nice. So from previous
that's how we make those
Jake will only buy if you're a guest on the podcast.
I did a coin flip for both of them. One Bulbasaur's coin flip and immediately lost George Chomp's coin flip. So that's how it goes, 50-50.
I will say that Eevee is like, I feel like when you told me what you spent on it, I thought it was a lot. But I do realize it's probably a very low pop in a 10, and it is an alt-art Eevee. You know?
So just so you guys are aware, this Eevee, the population on it is 255. There's 255 PSA 10. The reason I picked it up, it's meaningful to me. It was one of like the very first boxes that I ripped on my channel, and I never got this card in a 10. So I thought, it'd be neat to have something from the early days of the Twice Baked Jake channel inside of my collection. And so that's why that card's inside of my collection now.
That's wild. When me and Eileen started, that was one of the first boxes I think I made a TikTok on.
Guess what? Now you want one in a PSA 10 now too, right?
Yeah, but it's just wild that that's one of your first videos, because I perceive you as starting earlier than me.
I say first as in like the first 100 video.
Okay,
I don't know if it's my first 10 videos, but it's definitely like an earlier video.
Sure. And what's funny is I think when it dropped, you were probably already making video content where like it came out and you made a video, whereas I think I made a video on that box. Like that's what's funny about when I got in.
Yeah, you got in, you had that box.
This was on the shelves still. Like Target, this was something that was an item that stayed on a Target shelf for longer than a year, or maybe like 6 months. And I was able to, when I got back in the hobby, go like I think early end of Sun and Moon, early Sword and Shield, be like, oh, there's still Sun and Moon boxes on shelves, even though they're not very frequent, but you could still find, like, I remember Umbreon GX boxes, buying those like just off of Target shelves.
I completely understand what you mean now. Basically, yes, you're right. I did a review of this Eevee premium collection box. I remember it came inside of a box with like 4 other promo cards, and this was just like one of the many promo cards inside of it, but it was the most iconic and cool one. And I know what you mean is that you probably ripped it open like 8 or 12 months after I did my review of it, but it was still available for you to open it up a year later,
which is just a unheard of thing now. Like no one's going to a Target and finding an item that released 8 months ago still on the shelf.
Yeah. We're in month 6 now. Give it up for month 6 of the dry streak, everyone. Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah. Everyone was, so all the people that were like, reprints are coming, all this stuff is going to go to zero. I mean, where are they now?
You kind of proved me wrong on this one. I also kind of saw this one coming. I was hoping that I would be proven wrong, is that the Pokemon company would be able to pump up a lot more than what they have. We're still going to get a lot more, but it's absolutely way, way slower than I expected.
Yeah, and it's just math. Like they just can't do it. I think a lot of people don't... Well, a lot of people on the internet definitely don't critically think, but it's not like a shot at anyone that made the statement of like Pokemon saying, hey, we're going to print more, and them going, look, Pokemon saying they're going to print more. It's just when they say, oh, we're going to go to max capacity, it sounds like, oh, they're going to print double, triple, quadruple. But if you're already at 99% capacity and you go to 100, that's just a 1% increase.
Sure.
Like
we're aware
not
of
enough.
Yeah, the Pokemon company has always been super slow. Just to make sure the topic stays a little bit more on the positive side, what do you think of Card Party?
Oh, yeah. Well, Card Party was fantastic. I mean, Pat just knows how to
throw a good party.
Throw an event like that. I mean, who else could really... It's just crazy. Like, even the way he organizes the level of, the vendor level and stuff that's going on upstairs, but then there's like, these Q&As and people speaking downstairs on the main stage, and then even upstairs with that whole like ESPN live, like kind of, that was really fun to do. So
to give you guys some numbers, right? Card Party is absolutely turning into kind of like a major event for trading card collectors. It's quite the community, and it's very different from a Collecticon or a Front Row Card Show or any other trading card conventions where it's really focused on the vendors. Card Party is really more of an event that you go to, and there's just so much happening there, and it's very, very Pokemon card oriented. There are other trading card vendors there, but it is mainly Pokemon card, and it is more of a fun community event. There are so many content creators there. It's really a fan event. There's so much going on in terms of packs opening, enjoyment, and just fun stuff happening where if you're just there to have a good time, you will probably have a good time. There's enough going on that you'll have fun even if you don't have like $1 in your pocket.
Right. Like you and me could probably spend a whole day buying and selling and trading, like going from vendor table to vendor table, because we enjoy that kind of stuff. But if someone was like, oh, I want to buy and sell or trade for 5 hours, and then after that, I want to do something else, Card Party kind of has that other stuff to do.
Yeah, so did you get to see any cool content creators? I know like they're all kind of like our colleagues, and we do get to speak to a lot of them through Instagram and DMs and stuff like that. But I would say like Card Party is like the one event that we all get to hang out and get together. It's almost like a little content creator community event for us.
There's that too. I mean, I think that's something that Pat does really well. It's like this event is so nurturing and helps make collaboration with other content creators super easy. Like I feel like at other shows, maybe it's a little bit more difficult with just, you gotta sometimes like talk to multiple people, or maybe you're doing like a multi-person skit. You kind of gotta figure out what, if someone's in the middle of something, do they have time to, work and be in your content, and like you're going to be in their content. It's kind of like when we got done with the TCG tournament, which also was another cool thing that we got to do, is like there was a creator TCG tournament. So it was like
I got
all
to
of us like
battle
YouTubers
versus
battling.
Danny Phantom, which was hilarious. That's just funny.
Yeah, I battled Gonzo, and I eventually lost. Who did I lose to? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I battled Ian with Ian.
Yeah.
And but it's funny because like that was a reintroduction for me, kind of like to actually play the TCG again. It'd been a minute since I'd actually played Pokemon, but but then right after that, since Alex was playing in it too, he could help us film that one like short, and then that did well everywhere because we did that like Carl Magnuson spoof. So that was
fun. That was a good one. And even if we go and see some content creators at a card show, let's say like we ran into someone at Front Row Card Show or Collecticon, we're really just saying, hey, how's it going? And we, talk for like 2 minutes, and that's really it. But at Card Party, we were able to have, hour-long conversation and get into some really meaty topics that we might not be able to get to casually talk about at another event, I guess.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun, specifically for you and I as just creators. And we got to do a meet and greet with our fans and viewers, which, I'll be honest, I thought there'd be like 2 people in line, wanting to meet and greet us.
No,
but there was quite the line.
I know.
Yeah. We took so many photos. We filled a full hour, which I was surprised by.
What was cool about that was I thought, because a lot of the people that recognize us, like you talk about, are the people vending, or people that are really, I guess, they're like almost full time in this space. But it was really nice to see the casual, like kind of hobbyists and like people that just like maybe just consume either our individual channels content or just watch Card Lounge, like, take time out of their day to like come, wait in line just to meet us. It's like,
shout out to the kids who watch Card Lounge.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
I know. There were a couple kids that were like so excited, and I was like,
there was like a 10-year-old girl. Her name was Charlie, and she was jumping up and down.
Hey,
and she
shout out to Charlie.
She took a photo of us, and I remember her saying, "This is the best day of my life."
She was super excited.
No. And I was like,
and she was great. She got the free card, like when you did the binder book challenge with her.
Card, which comes inside of this celebration box. So she turned to a random page, and we were giving away free cards, and she won the whole entire celebration's 25th anniversary Pikachu, all 4 of them. Yeah. But really cool. When she said this is the best day of her life, I thought that was hilarious, and it's really cool because how is that possible that meeting us is the best day? So I try to make it the best day as possible for her. So good.
Yeah, that was really cool. And all the other kids that like came up and like wanted to either like take photos or like get their binders signed. And there's a lot of, I mean,
those kids are savvy.
Right. Like the kids are, you know, they got the binder. They're having like everyone sign it, where I'm like, wow, you met all these other like PokeTubers. This is crazy. And then the savvy kid, yeah, there was that one kid that even said, can you sign like this and then this card? And we were like, okay. And he's like, can you sign this ETB? And he was like, yeah, I think if I get your guys' autographs on it and PokeChloe's and real breaking Nate's, it'll increase the value of this ETB.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, there was one kid who was walking around with like a Prismatic Evolutions ETB, and he's trying to get everyone's autograph on it to increase the value of his ETB for like a trade up challenge.
It's a cool item.
It's very savvy.
Yeah, It makes it unique, you know. And then he's like, yeah, I'm gonna then trade this for like a big card I want. And I was like, hey, that's that's the whole name of the game.
Yeah. One thing that blew me away at the event, and maybe I shouldn't be blown away by this because I've been to quite a few trading card event, but it was really like the amount of vintage booster packs that were being ripped open at the event. You know, whenever there's a large event like this, plenty of packs get open. We're all aware of that. But there were multiple base set booster boxes being ripped open, multiple first edition vintage booster boxes being ripped open. The amount of boxes being ripped open in one single card party event was actually insane.
Yeah.
And in my head, I was thinking, man, this is happening like multiple time of years, not just card party, but like at Collecticon or other shows where everyone's meeting together and we're doing these large vintage rips. And these vintage boxes are still being ripped open quite often.
Yeah. And it's you know, obviously you're not going to get a hit out of every single pack, but I do see the videos of someone just ripping like, you know, 2 fire red leaf green packs and someone pulling like a fresh, you know, pack fresh Gengar EX, or, you know, that all the kids on stage that pulled stuff like the Charizard being pulled. And then I guess dude, you didn't text me when Collectr was opening I didn't know I could get a fossil pack if we just showed up to the fossil rip box.
Sorry, I didn't know.
If I didn't know, I mean,
I really didn't know what was happening. They just kind of like threw me in there, like Jake, get in here. I'm like, okay, what's happening? And they're like, they handed me like a first edition fossil pack, and they just ripped it open. Yeah, me too. Nice. It was a lot of fun.
Did you get a holo from your pack?
I did not. Oh. I got a non-holo Aerodactyl.
Ooh.
It wasn't bad. I was happy just opening it up.
You know. To get to exactly. It's like you forget, like, when you get to open up a vintage pack, how kind of infrequent that actually happens and how special it is when you get to do it. So it is kind of cool that Pat also, you know, facilitates just collectors. Like he's just getting people from the crowd to go up on stage and open these vintage packs. You got to realize, like, that's probably maybe some of these people's like only opportunity to do that, unless they want to go spend like $800 on an old pack themselves, which I feel like, you know, not too many people are inclined to do just off a whim.
Yeah, there were definitely some kids who probably had like the best moment of their life ever on that stage, because we definitely saw some Venusaurs, Blastoise, Charizard open up.
Mewtwo.
Yeah.
I saw a kid get super excited with the Raichu pull.
Yeah. Pat opened a first edition base Raichu on the stage too from a heavy base pack. So like crazy stuff is happening, and it is a ton of fun. So I guess our general consensus is highly recommended. If you guys are available, go to the next card party or whenever one is available near you guys. It's absolutely worth it. It's a ton of fun.
If you love Pokemon cards and you love, you know, buying, selling, trading, and meeting other people in the hobby, that speaking of the trading, I have not seen a trade night like the card party one in a while.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember like some of the OG Collecticon trade nights. I mean, those are obviously still good, but you don't see as many like maybe kids at them, and it's still a lot of you know, the vendors and the dealers.
It's a true trade night.
Right. Like this was like so many, you know, like kids, adults, everyone in between. Everyone's got their binders out. Some people are like, you know, maybe wheeling and dealing and like buying and selling, but just a lot of people just like, hey, let me see your binder. Oh, I've got these cards. Oh, I would like that. I'll give you 2 of these, or 1 for 1, and just trading happening everywhere for the entire like the bottom floor of the convention center. Like that was insane.
Yeah. So during trade night, I was carrying around a binder full of like just free cards. It was just full of like ultra rare Vs, VMAX, EX, all those kinds of like. There wasn't anything super crazy inside of the binder, but they were solid $1 to $10 cards. And as soon as you say the word free cards, you kind of get trampled quite often by. There was a line of kids wanting to grab like cards for free, and I had to like, explain the rules to them. And they were very savvy. They were like, "Can I look through the binder first? What page do I go to? Or what's the best hit?" Like they were like grilling me. I'm like, no, just turn to a page, grab a card, and come on, there's another one coming up, kid. But it was a ton of fun. But yeah, those kids, they will trample you if you got some free cards. It's a lot of fun. Just be aware of that.
Speaking of the cards, like I feel like a lot of kids with their families, like adults and we're trying to help their kids do the scavenger hunt and like get the cards for like accomplishing certain things, like making a successful trade, or we got a couple of those ones where it's like if you see someone doing something kind for someone, they get that like bonus like kindness card. And I'm sure everyone had a way to be able to ask someone or to get that, but it just again, it's a way that like Pat helps facilitate like interactions between collectors and between the content creators to kind of help just really ease the friction of being able to collaborate and trade and just get involved with the community.
I absolutely agree. Is that he hit the nail on the head on like the messaging side of it is, hey, like we're a community, we're a hobby, how do we push the positive aspect of it? So that's the good thing, is that if you're going to this event, the vibes it gives off is very different from other events where things are maybe a little bit more cutthroat on the deal side. The deals at Card Party, I would say, are a little bit more laid back. It's a much more of a casual experience and more focused around the fun rather than the money aspect, I suppose.
The transactions, but still allowing for
the
transactions to take place, right? So it's like all still happening. So yeah, if you love Pokemon cards, if you love just like hanging out with people, trading, and then getting involved with events and seeing cool vintage pack openings live and like being a part of like streaming things, or even how many people were in the stands when you and me were just doing our pack battle openings against like Pokemon Classic and like
and
it was
PokeCamp,
it was just like we were just pack battling, but people were finding the entertainment and seeing us go back and forth opening up packs, and then I guess we were like answering certain questions on stage.
It was an hour, but it flew by. Like we were just opening
questions.
up, joining together, and like having casual banter back and forth, talking about like what our favorite shows are, the names of our content, and all kinds of stuff. Like we were just talking and opening up packs, which is what the hobbies kind of is.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the community part, right? Like in a way, that's why I started like live streaming, and I think a lot of the content creators that are, here now that run a live stream or just make content, the whole reason we put content out there and people can all, talk in the comments or, talk in chat during the live streams is that community aspect. And then, Pat just makes this sort of event where it just all can happen live, you know? So
we highly recommend it. Some of the numbers I heard, I can't land on these numbers just because they're pure rumors. But from what I've heard, the con was fully sold out. Card Party was fully sold out for the weekend. So just be aware that the word is getting out there that this is a very fun event, and most likely future event, it might be a little bit more hard to get to. Kind of like a Comic-Con where you gotta have to do like a lottery system to get a ticket or something.
Right. Not that it would be like so prestigious later. I mean, it has obviously that capability, but I get what Jake's trying to say. It's like, I do remember comments when they announced on Instagram, like, oh, there's not going to be tickets sold at the door. I think I want to say maybe if people came on Sunday, just because it never felt super crowded.
It did.
There. And what I mean by that is there was still a lot of people there, guys. It didn't feel like it was light or unattended, but you definitely didn't feel like shoulder to shoulder or like squished, which is great. And that's usually how Comic-Cons or like big, like cons that have been around 10 plus years get to at some point, until they like expand or like find ways to like funnel traffic properly. I just feel like it was like a great experience that more and more people are starting to learn about. So it definitely helps to get your tickets early. And if you know that you're going to go that weekend, don't wait to buy your tickets like that weekend or the day of. Certainly, just get your tickets online ahead of time, because that's essentially what you have to do for every major convention.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Is that
so
like
popular.
for future conventions like the big anime expo or a Comic-Con, you have to buy your ticket a year in advance. So I just want people to be aware that you might have to purchase or be aware of Card Party in the future if you want to make sure you can go.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's not even about buying it in advance. Those cons have gotten so big. It's like in advance, you're in the lottery system. You may want to go, and there's still so many people out there that want to go. Like you just might not win the chance to go, which is crazy to think about, that a convention can get so big that it literally just they have to limit, like they won't allow everyone to like give them their money, which is wild.
So we also filmed our very first Card Lounge live at Card Party. What did you think of our first live one, which you guys have probably already seen because it would have been last week's episode?
Yeah, last week's episode with Coop was awesome. I mean, I think the footage came out crispy. Deep Pocket Monsters team.
Audio's good. Let us know if something was wrong.
Yeah, did a really good job filming it. The audio came out crisp as well. And it was awesome getting to know Coop a little bit better, Yeah,
that hour just flew by. If you're wondering why that episode was a little bit short, it was because we had to keep it within a certain time frame because we're in a live audience and there's other events happening after our podcast. So we have to finish it to make sure other stuff happen. So that's why the episode was exactly 1 hour. But we filled the hour. It was a lot of fun. That was my first time getting to meet Coops. Fantastic dude. He's a great guy.
Dude, right? He's just kind of like us. It was cool to learn his origin story about how he's been creating content for just as long as us.
Any of us,
Right. Like, it's not like, I think a lot of people, I think I even asked him this question. It's like, he may have just popped up on your radar in the last year and a half because all of his, shorts have gone super viral. But that's just really who he is. I don't even think he's trying to. I think also people might say, oh, he just does those shorts for the content, but it's like, no, he just likes to, he's like a very giving person. It was awesome to see him. Like, I feel like he always had people coming up to him wanting to like take photos or like sign someone's card or their binder, and he was just always down to do it. And then he's really like cut from the cloth, like he's been collecting the stuff he enjoys, the stuff he talked about in his collection. Even just like when we were opening packs online for the ESPN like live stream thing, it was like I was next to him and he was like, okay, we need to turn the card camera on, because I think he saw a glimmer of something. And I think I was on stage with Gonzo and oh my gosh, I can't even remember who else. It was like, I think maybe Scott's PC, and we were all kind of like, oh, what did you pull something? And I'm thinking like, I don't know, maybe he just pulled a regular like IR or SIR, and then he pulled like the all black Reshiram like BWR, and we all just were like, we all enjoyed that thrill of like, oh man, he just pulled the best card in the set. And he's like about this hobby, he's like about it.
If you've heard of Coop's collection or Coop's collectible, you probably heard about him in the last year or two max.
Maybe,
but he's been doing content for like 5-6 years. He's been around, he's been doing stuff, and he's been collecting for quite a while, which is cool.
And collecting just like us, in that it's not even, like I collect One Piece TCG too. He used to do videos on like old Dragon Ball card sets and Yu-Gi-Oh! And like obviously now he collects Pokemon, and he probably collected Pokemon back then, but it's not like he's a fair weather fan that's just in this hobby right now because it got hot and started making content on Pokemon because it got hot. I firmly believe he would still be on his path, and like his growth would still be just as strong, even if Pokemon was in a dry spell right now, because he would just be still doing, like, he genuinely enjoys doing the content and making it.
If his videos never popped off, he would still be doing videos today.
We still would have eventually, I think, met him as a fellow content creator at some point, and eventually, got him on the pod, and, still would have met him as a part of this community.
And when I was on the Card Lounge Live with him and with you, the thing I was thinking was, oh my goodness, like, we're having such normal conversation. It's just three buds sitting around talking about cards. But the thing is, we've never met Coops before this weekend. This weekend at Card Party was the first time we've ever met and talked to him. But it felt completely natural because we all had the exact same interests. And that's the great thing about the hobby and Pokemon card collecting.
That common
is
thread.
that if I've never met you, we can still sit down and have like this deep, long conversation about our interests and our shared interests very quickly and easily, and immediately become like best friends.
Best friends, yeah. Yep. It reminded me, like, talking to Coop was like talking to how I met like you in the hobby and how I met like everyone that has now become like a lifelong friend of mine that's like a fellow collector. It's just like you start talking about certain cards you like or how you collect and just things going on in the hobby, and you can just like hit it off with, you know, certain people.
Yeah. Card Lounge will be right back after a word from our sponsor. A huge thank you to Collectr for sponsoring today's episode of the Card Lounge podcast. Collectr is the ultimate app to track value and manage your collection like a pro. Imagine this, you're at a card show and you need to know the value of a card immediately. You can scan the cards in seconds. Just point your phone and boom, the card name, set, rarity, and price. You have all of the insight on the current state of the Pokemon card market in the palm of your hand. Want to know the value of your collection today? Collectr pulls live price data from real-time sales, so you're always locked in on the current market value. No more digging through sold listings. Your collection digitized and organized with zero hassle. With real-time portfolio tracking, you'll see your total collection value, daily movers, and price history over time. You can even add cards to your watch list so you remember what you wanted to pick up. Collectr also offers an amazing platform to show off your collection to others. You can even see my whole entire collection showcase on the Collectr app. Try out Collectr today. It's available for download on iOS and Android. To move on from the card party talk a little bit, a lot of stuff happened that weekend also in terms of like the market and things that were just trading. Something interesting thing I found out during that weekend was everything's hot. Everything is hot right now except Scarlet and Violet. Scarlet Violet, not hot. But everything else, Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield, Gold Star, Black and White, you name the era, it's doing pretty well except for the last 2 to 3 years of Modern. The Modern cards are actually being pretty cheap and affordable, which I think is actually okay. I actually think that's completely okay. That makes sense.
That makes sense from a supply and demand perspective. It's the most recent stuff. It's the most stuff that's easily accessible and out there.
Everyone thinks Scarlet and Violet's overprinted, which is what they've said about every single set ever before.
Yeah.
But it should be cheap.
I will say I've noticed what you're talking about too. Like beyond just the megas and the speculation of the new mega set coming and people like being like building in that pre-hype for that and wanting to buy like old school megas from XY. I think when the Pokemon boom, this current one, started to happen, people were commenting how, oh, it's just like a modern boom, but it wasn't really affecting a lot of vintage cards. But you see the cycle that we already knew was going to happen, which is why I started to focus on like my Aquapolis set and Skyridge and Expedition, because I'm like, the vintage stuff is going to be way harder to find. And then that's what a lot of vintage people were preaching. It's like, you know, you can spend money on the modern stuff, and that has gone up too. So it's like if people, because I think there's a lot of demand for it because there's a lot of current awareness for it. But you see, as people have started to be in the hobby for 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months now, it happens with everyone jumping in, right? Like you get familiar and master the current sets that are coming out, and then you go, wait, let me dig a little deeper. And you start to look at older cards and you remember what you had when you were a kid. And then now you just see like, yeah, the gold stars booming, crystals booming, all the Skyridge hollows, like all the hollows I started to get from like EX sets, stuff before XY are just like shooting up in price.
Yeah.
Even base set, right? I think like a PSA 9 Charizard just hit like almost 2K. And it's like, it used to be under 1,000, like I want to say a year ago, I remember.
Yeah, I learned something this weekend, which was or last weekend, was the Gold Star Premium. Is basically when you're selling a Gold Star card, you never ask for under market. You never ever ask for under market. It's an insult. It's an insult to say you want a Gold Star card for 90% market. You always ask for more.
You could wait. You ask for more?
The person will you have to ask for more. Yes, basically, if the market value of a Gold Star card is say 4,000, expect to pay 4,500.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're unlikely to ever get it for 3,800.
Well, it just depends on what the seller is feeling. I mean, I guess it depends on what they have it stickered at. But right, if the true market is like 4K, I guess it's just the fact that there's enough competition amongst the buyers that some
Right.
buyer is just going to be willing to spend 4K on something. So on that gold star, so you just have less negotiation power to be like, oh, sell it to me for 3,500,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So I did a fun thing during Card Party, which was I live streamed for 3 hours. I walked around with a copy of my Magikarp PSA 10 illustration rare. And I walked around and I went to every single vendor I could find and just asked them, like, hey, how much are you willing to give this to me? How much do you think it's worth? Just to show both the audience and the viewers and myself the market, you know? Can you guess what the vendors said about the Magikarp PSA 10?
I'm sure there were
price do you think they'll give
some that were probably offering you over 2K, but I would say not too much over 2K.
No. I got
Not
maybe
even 2K?
1 to 2 vendors out of 800
Yeah.
that gave me an offer of 2K.
Okay, yeah. So 2K. I mean, I think that's okay. Yeah. I would say that's pretty accurate. Like when I was saying over 2K, I would say maybe like 2.1 or barely over, like 2.2.
So I think the highest offer I got was 2050, and it was from Bulbasaur, and I think he was just being friendly because he knows me and we're buds. So he gave me an offer of 2050.
It's probably fair because he knows he could probably move it for like 2,400. Yeah.
So everyone else pretty much gave me an offer. I think the highest in trade I got was like 2,100 to 2,000 in trade value.
Yeah.
And everyone else, I either passed. Some of them just didn't give me an offer. They're like, no, I don't want to pick up the Magikarp. It's too risky right now. And the general average offers were between 1,600 to 1,800 max. Like that was the general price everyone was willing to pay, was 1,600 to 1,800.
Yeah,
which was
because that's the safe amount to. Yeah, if one came to me, I feel like that's what
you
I would
ask.
offer because I would know even if it came down a little. At the very least, if I picked it up for say like 1,700,
you
I
could
could
break
move
even,
it
worst
for
case.
18.
Yeah.
Or if I had to move it at 17, at least I would lose no money. If I pick it up for 2,300 and then I need to move it and I can only move it for 21 or 22, like I lose money on it, that feels bad.
Yeah, which was the whole entire point I was trying to prove was that like, hey, these are all professional vendors, other collectors, and they are not willing to pick up that card for the price that people were touting it at, which was $3,000. Some people were saying like, oh, Jake, you're shilling the Magikarp. No, I'm doing the opposite. I'm showing that it's not worth it. That was the whole entire point of that.
Wait, people thought you were shilling the Magikarp?
Which makes no sense.
Just from when we were talking about it?
Yeah, which basically makes absolutely
that
no
stuff
sense.
to heart. Yeah, because I mean, I do know what you mean. Yeah, there was like one comment where it's like, has a bunch of likes on it that just think like, if we talk about like what we like to talk about, like it will impact the entire marketplace, and it just can't. We just don't.
There's so many cards that are popping off that we don't even talk about.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is that like every card is kind of popping off right now, and there's so many few cards that we don't ever talk about. Right. Like if a Ninja Star card popped up, we didn't remember.
Yeah, but if a lot of people watch this podcast and then just agree with our general sentiment, where then it sort of strengthens their belief that they should put more money in this card, or that they would buy a lot of X card because they think it's undervalued. It just shows that we didn't like put that thought in their head, but I think that we're just pretty in tune with the hobby at this point. And I think when we see something that's like pretty noticeable, other people might feel that same inkling, but just maybe not have as strong of maybe a gut instinct on it. And maybe that, you get that with having experience in the hobby, right? Just like being in it for longer, you're going to see the ebbs and flows, and you're going to see how like the psychology of the market and how people look at certain cards, and even knowing things like just recognizing certain artworks and being like, this is a beautiful card. And I think other people are going to agree with me on it. And then understanding things like true rarity value, like supply and demand, but also like how hard is it to find this card? And then how hard is it to find in a high grade? Because that has its own sort of separate population, right?
So I'm just going to finish my chapter story on that Magikarp. That basically I picked up 3 copies like 6 or 7 weeks ago. And the reason I picked them up was because Jar Chomp kind of convinced me that it was a great card. But I did think about it. Basically, Paldea Evolve booster boxes prices doubled. But the prices on the Magikarp went down. That makes no sense.
Makes no sense.
So that's why I picked it up, is because I saw
there.
an opportunity where the Magikarp was cheap, Paldea Evolve is expensive. It should be more expensive because Paldea Evolve is more expensive.
Yep.
And that occurred, is that I picked it up when it was going down, makes no sense. And then it went back up, which makes sense because Paldea Evolve is now more expensive.
Yep.
But it doesn't make sense for it to be $3,000. That's where I disagree. Like, that's way too high.
Yeah.
And if it's at $3,000, I should be selling my extra copies, which is what I did. I sold one copy of the Magikarp for $1,800 cash, which is fantastic. We went to a bunch of vendors, talked to them, and most of them would agree. Like, they can't really even pay more than that. Like, if I were to sell one to them, they would be paying $1,700, $1,600, whatever. And the other copy I traded to someone during the con for some really cool cards. So
what'd you get out of it? Trade again?
Oh, maybe I was wrong. I got the Bubble Mew. So I guess I didn't get that from Bulbasaur. I got the Bubble Mew, and I got myself a Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX PSA 10. So the Bubble Mew is going for right around $950.
$900,
and
yeah.
the Tag Team GX Mew and Mewtwo is going for like $1,100. So I got around
is that like
$2,100 worth of value.
That, which is great for that Magikarp, especially because you bought it at $1,000, right?
Right. So I have one copy of that Magikarp now. I'm done trading it,
and it's
or
like
whatever.
You got it for free, basically, because of what you did with the excess ones you bought.
Right, and that's literally the world of collecting in a nutshell. That I bought some cards that I think were underrated, and once they became overrated for whatever reason, I traded them, like literally traded them to some other collectors for other cards that I think are now underrated again.
And then you could get other things that you wanted that maybe you wouldn't want to spend $1,000 on a Bubble Mew and then also pick up like the Mewtwo tag team. But because you know you're using the fish to get it and you got the fish for so low, at the end of the day from start to finish, it's basically like you spent $1,000 to get the Bubble Mew and the tag team Mewtwo Mew, which is a crazy deal. Like, that's what you want.
I got my Magikarp for free, and I got some other really cool cards out of it pretty much. So
at a great deal.
That's pretty much collecting for you guys. And all of that is live stream. You guys can watch me live stream picking up those 3 Magikarps, and you can watch me trading them for other people.
Right. And that's just collecting like in
a nutshell, I guess.
I don't even want to say smart way, because it's not like if people don't do that or if people just want to use their day job income to collect what they want to, just open up packs. That's not dumb, guys. Again, there's no wrong way to collect. But this way that Jake is talking about is kind of like, something me and Jake have been doing for a while. And I'm sure a lot of people, maybe enjoy collecting in this way. And it's basically like, what money have you put into your collection? And then how can you just use the funds or the cards and the value that's already in your collection to then grow that collection more and just kind of grow it within itself without having to, pump it more with sort of like outside funding.
Yeah, and this is just one example. This is stuff that Rob and I do all the time as just collectors in the hobbies, and this is what we find enjoyable, is finding like the little niches or the little arbitrage in the hobby where things don't make sense. We like finding underrated cards, and once they go up, it feels like we rooted for the underdog and it kind of won. It makes us feel good that we saw it before other people did.
I feel like it's, what's so funny? Remember the first card show we went together, and then you saw me move that card where I just like gained $1,300 like in an hour or maybe less. I wanted to do more moves like that at Card Party, but I feel like I didn't. And I feel like it's because I didn't focus on, like, you talk about that arbitrage. Like, dude, I know someone, and then like I won't like mention any names just because I don't know if they'd want me to or not, but I know someone that told me, and I don't know why they wouldn't lie about this, but it's like they found a vintage box on the floor, like being sold at a certain price, and it was black and white. And black and white's about to come out, for in English, like the new revamp for Black Bolt and White Flare. I think that has made black and white packs increase, because for the longest time, for vintage packs and how old they are, black and white packs were kind of like inexpensive, right? Yeah. And the booster boxes are kind of affordable in a way. And by affordable, I mean like $2,000 to $3,000 or something like that. It's a lot of money, but comparatively to like, $12K or $14K for like an old vintage base set box, right? And now I think those are at like $20K. But I know someone that basically said they went to a table, they got a black and white box for like around $2,000, and they just took it to another table, like maybe 2 or 3 tables over, and sold it for almost like $4,000 and just made $2,000.
Yeah.
And I go, didn't the person selling it to you like look it up? Like if you can move it for 4K, like why can't they move it for 4K? Like why did they sell it to you for 2K? And then like you took it to the table. So he doesn't have the upper hand in the negotiation. Now the table goes, okay, we could sell this box for 4K. I would think they're only going to offer him 3K, which is going to cut that middle, but they gave him almost like full box price. So it's like, do they think that box is going to appreciate, or like they want to move that box later for 5K and they make 1,000 on it? But if they're moving it to the end customer, they should make way less than what, I mean, essentially he's like just middlemaning it, right? But his middleman chunk was just so strong, and he probably facilitated that in like a 20-minute span. So it's like, dude, how are you, like, there, guys, it just shows you like there's still ways to, how are you going to make $2,000 in 20 minutes by just going to a card show? Like, well, that's crazy.
I completely agree with you. I think that's super cool. I will say he knows what he's doing. He saw a gem. He saw something that
I was going to say.
There were 100 people, 200 people walking past that table who did not see that opportunity on that table. No skin off their bones. Like, it's completely fine. He saw an opportunity there and he took it. He took the risk. You know, there's no guarantee that he was able to do that, but he saw something that other people didn't, and he was rewarded for that. I will say the same thing that can happen to anyone. Like for my Magikarp, right? There was a table that was willing to buy it for $1,400 and another table that was willing to buy it for $2,000. In that span, one seller is paying me $1,400. Another vendor is buying me for $2,000. So that's a $600 gap there.
You know what's so funny? And I guess once you establish, so what, you talked to a vendor, you were live streaming, and you got words out of that vendor's mouth that's like, I'll give you 2K cash for that Magikarp.
Right.
So, I mean, at that point, you could just go to other vendor tables and see if they're selling a Magikarp. And if they're selling it for like $1,800 or $1,700, which is a pretty, I mean, that's what you sold your other one for. Like you could buy it at $1,800. And this seems way more realistic because the margin is much smaller. But you would just go find a deal somewhere where you could buy the carp for $1,800 and then immediately know that you could go take it to that table if you wanted to and make $200. Like,
oh yeah,
just instantly.
Yeah, that can absolutely occur, which is, it's kind of fun. It's fun to do these little wheels.
To find but you got it. I mean, guys, that, you know, again, we're just talking about it like it's such a simple thing. And I guess to execute it, it kind of sounds simple, but it is, you need to have research. You need to know the market. You need to know the vendors in a way. You need to know what markets they're looking at, what they kind of concentrate on. It's a lot of work to kind of recognize when those opportunities exist and then capitalize on them.
Yeah. And I've heard some people talk about it and when they say like, oh, isn't that like a little bit like scalpy, a little bit flippy and a little bit scummy? I don't think it's any of that. Basically, if someone's willing to make that trade for $2,000 and they accept that trade and they believe that what it's worth, then it is what it is. The great thing about Pokemon cards, and I think this is really neat, is that some of these cards don't have a set value. It's part of the fun of it is that their value is kind of grayish, is how we can determine if something's underrated or overrated, is because, hey, we don't believe certain cards should be certain prices. They're too expensive. And if enough of us believe that, then the prices of it will go down because no one will purchase them at those high prices. Boom. And the exact opposite will happen is we think this card is way cooler than it actually is. And then we start scooping it up, then the prices naturally go up. It's part of the fun of the hobby is the transactional part of it.
And that is the market psychology part. Like what Jake is talking about is correct, guys. There's no set, I hear this a lot, especially like on, you know, Facebook groups or online when it's like, hey, you have that priced incorrectly. And to some degree, and again, it becomes a battle of who's got the better knowledge or like understanding of the cards and their value. Because a lot of people might say you have something priced incorrectly. But if you know, and I guess this is where it gets a little tricky because some people can think that they know the right answer. It's always the distinction that I always like tell my followers about the difference between what something is worth and what something is valued at. Those two terms get like kind of interchanged, like they're synonymous, and they are, I guess, synonymous, but they are different at the end of the day. And what that means is you can see when something is undervalued, but it clearly has some sort of worth to it. And I think I've maybe even talked about this in a previous podcast, where if you identify that a card is undervalued and you can talk to someone and be like, oh, that's not what it's worth. Like you know that someone out there is probably going to pay more for something, even if it's stickered or last solds or, whatever are suggesting it's a lower price. Perfect example was the Moonbryon I sold. Or not the Moonbryon, the Umbreon from Aquapolis.
Okay.
The one I sold that was like a 9 that I had spare.
I saw it.
I could have let it go to the first person that gave me an offer at the Las Vegas card show for $2,000. And I think, maybe there was a last sold at around $2,000, but the card had consistently kept selling for more. It went from like $1,300 to
you don't want to sell it for the last
to $2,000.
price.
Yeah, it's like when you see like 50 sales happen at $2,000 for something, and that's over the past year, you could probably say market sentiment and how people view the value of that card is it is worth $2,000. Now, what I'm seeing in the value of that card, it's like he would try to basically convince me, oh, this card is worth $2,000, but I knew it was worth more. And I knew he did too, because I'm telling him, yeah, I think I can wait and sell it for more. And someone immediately came to my table later and offered me like 2.2. And even then I wasn't like, I'm like, I want it closer to 2.5 because I know there's not a lot of these out there. And if someone wants this card in a 9 in their collection, all of the cards are getting scooped up. The reason we're even talking about the 9s is because there's already a market for, like, the 10s are already in people's personal collections. Right. There's no more 10s that are getting passed around. And if someone is selling a 10, the price reflects that in that it's like, $9,000. So if you want this card in the next best grade, which is mint condition, to, get at least 2,000 is pretty reasonable, because eventually one day the 9 is going to be 7, 8, 9,000, because the 10 people are going to want 20,000 for, if you want to get the, full set and like have it in your collection in a PSA 10. So eventually someone that originally offered, I think, $2,000 on it came back later. I told him, I wouldn't do anything less than 2.2 because someone's already offered 2.2. And then I was like, I would have done it for 2.3. And then they walked away. And I was like, that guy probably later, maybe at the end of the show, will buy it for 2.3. The guy that originally offered 2 was like, you know what? If you'll take 2.3 on it, I'll do it for 2.3. Because he knew that it was worth more than just $2,000.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Is that I think some people are too stuck on the market price. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll go to CCG Player or whatever app they use, and they see one number, and they say that's the number for that card or that product or whatever it is, and they can't get away from it.
Get it right.
They don't realize there's plenty of wiggle room depending on who you're talking to, how desirable that person wants it, and so much more, right? Like a Mario Pikachu card. Let's say that card's currently worth $14,000. I would not sell mine for $14,000, right? That's the point. Is that, like, for me, that card is worth more than $14,000. Like, if you ask me, like, hey, I'm gonna give you $14,000 cash right now, that's the market price on that card. You should be willing to take it because that's the market price. I would say, no, I don't want $14,000 for it. That's the point.
For just the Mario Pikachu, right?
Right.
You wouldn't take $14,000 for your Mario Pikachu?
No, because it's only one in my collection, and it's my personal
want it,
collection.
Right? I get it. So what's funny
to me,
is
it's worth more than that.
Exactly, and that's your last one in your collection. I'm curious, what would be what someone would have to offer you to make you go, okay, I'll take it out of my personal collection?
So right now,
like
maybe
$20,000.
Yeah. At $20,000, I would be willing to do it, and the only reason I'd be willing to do it is because I know for sure I could probably buy it for less immediately.
Right.
Because I still want one in my collection.
Right. Which is probably why no one would offer you that much more. But that is funny to think that if someone wanted, like, I want to get the one in Jake's collection, and I want to buy that one, what they have to offer you what anyone would have to offer someone to get rid of a card that they know that they just want in their personal collection anyway, it almost has to be an amount that mentally for that collector, they have to go, okay, that would make me rich enough that I think I could use that same amount of money, but maybe a little bit less of it to reacquire the card, like almost immediately.
Well, that's how prices on cars go up, is that once cards
enough
sell
people
out,
see-
the only people that you can get them from is from other collectors who are asking for more and more.
Exactly. And so then this is your supply and demand, guys, your economics 101. It's kind of like, and this is why I think for vintage, you have a lot of the vintage collectors kind of, you know, talking about this kind of the how much importance actual rarity kind of takes place within, you know, the market and the pricing of stuff. It is wild how much modern Pokemon is at a certain price point. And you look at the PSA 10s, you're like, dude, the Van Goghs are what? Like I just saw, we could talk about that. The Van Goghs, there's more now graded in a 10. More of that card has been graded than the original base set Charizard.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
So I'll tell you the numbers on it.
And yet the price
wild.
just keeps going up.
Yeah. So that's a card that we're saying is overrated because the comps on it don't make sense. The comparables.
Correct.
So basically, let me tell the audience is that for the Great Felt Hat Pikachu, the amount of PSA 10s and PSA 9s, I think they combine up to 80,000 right now.
Ooh.
PSA 9s and PSA 8s combined are 80,000 of them. And you combine the CGCs and BGS that have been graded of the Great Felt Hat. Combined total, I think you have 100,000 graded Great Felt Hat Pikachus just floating around out there. And the PSA 10s are currently going for right around $1,000 a card. And what we're trying to say is that, like, hey, for $1,000, I don't know, like you could buy a lot of cooler cards. Basically, I'll give you an example. That EVGX I have on the screen, right?
Yeah.
I picked it up from Jarchomp for $1,650. And there's 255 PSA 10. 255.
So a card that has 10,000 or more, right? Because that's just the PSA population, right?
Right.
So let's say with PSA, BGS, CGC, and then like every other like
300,
smaller
400,
grade,
sure.
right? It's like you're talking about such a huge. What is that, like? Almost more than 100,000 copies that are graded in a
So this is
10.
a great example of us saying, hey, here's one card we think is underrated, and here's another example of a card that we think is overrated.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with these cards. It's nothing personal. We just see the numbers, and they just don't make sense to us as collectors in the hobby.
Because it's $1,000, and then you're just saying for a couple $100 more, you're picking up this Eevee. Now, Pikachu is iconic. Van
Great
Gogh,
Felt Hat Pikachu,
obviously,
very-
great. It's a Great
very
Felt
iconic.
Hat, right?
We think it's a cool card.
It's definitely iconic, but I do feel like let's just try to imagine 5 years from now. Let's imagine 10 years from now. If this Altar Eevee GX just stays in your collection, and at another card show, someone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna pick that up. It's a low pop. It stays in his collection," and there's only 250 in the world. We know there's enough collector. There's more than 250 Eevee collectors. There's more, just people whose favorite Pokemon is Eevee, that if they want every variation of Eevee or they just like that card, we know there's way more people that want that card than 250 people.
Yeah.
Now, the Van Gogh, the price is probably where it's at because I'm sure there's more than 100,000 people in this world that like that Gray Felt Hat Pikachu. It's a very iconic promo card. But at the end of the day, with the price being that close, you gotta understand that, like, one of the prices is kind of wonky. Like, you know, the price should not be that close for something that has over 100,000 in the population versus something that has 200 in the population.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Is that when you talk about comp, it really is what it means. Is comparable. Is you're comparing it to other cards and other collectibles. Does it make sense for where it lands? And we're saying it doesn't because I'm not trying to show this card. I just think it's a cool card, and we're just using it as an example. But basically, this EVGX, this is the only copy of it at all of Card Party. I went to every single table at Card Party, and this was the only copy of it. And that makes sense because there's 255 PSA 10. How many of them are sitting in the room? Just one. Right? I went to another table. There were 30 Great Felt Hat Pikachus in this one guy's table. He had a whole entire row of PSA 9s and a whole entire row of PSA 10s, like 15 PSA 10 Great Felt Hat Pikachu stack up against each other, and he had them listed for about $1,000 each. And I'm like, there's no way I'm paying $1,000 for that card.
Right, and I wouldn't either, but yet the price is staying strong there, or at least it has been consistently going up. I'm actually curious, why do you think that we haven't seen such a retrace on the Gray Felt Hat, or that it hasn't even just come down to still a very respectable card at like 500 or 600 in a 10? Like, that would still be a very expensive card. And I'll say this, even more respectable that it's that price, it hasn't come down to 500 or 600 when I feel like it's a promo card that was given away at a free event and pre like this 2025 era boom, other similar kind of promo cards that are just like given away. I mean, perfect example, like when you think of like promo cards that they give away at Pokemon centers, those in tens can sometimes be just like $85, like $100 promo cards for a Pikachu too, like an alt art Pikachu.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, because no one paid for the Great Felt Hat Pikachu. It was a free card, readily given a while, and there is 100,000 graded copies. Let's not even talk about the amount of raw copies of it. Very cool card. We love it. But the basics of it is, you're right, it doesn't make sense. So that's the point of it. And you're asking me, like, why hasn't the price dipped? And nothing's really dipped. The market is super bullish right now. Everyone's like, Pokemon's going up. It's going to the moon.
Right.
We're still in a period of hype. Like, things are still moving up.
Right.
I don't see it swinging down until that pendulum goes the other direction.
And when the pendulum goes the other direction, a lot of people will go, oh, I'll sell my gray felt hat because there's so many out there. And because so many people out there have it, so many will hit the market at one time that if you're trying to sell yours for 800 and I'm like, ugh, I want to sell some Pokemon stuff, but I need to sell mine before, like, I need to compete with Jake's selling items. So now I'm going to sell it for 750. Someone else is going to sell for 700. That's when you start to see the market then reflect, and that's how the price goes down.
You're absolutely right. And that's the next point we're getting to, is why are we standoffish on the Great Felt Hat Pikachu, even though there's just so much demand for it? And people are right. There's a ton of demand for it. It's going up. That makes sense. There's more than 100,000 people that want it. It's usually what the comment section will use as the defense. But basically, you're right, is that once the pendulum swings to the other direction and people need to start selling, one of the first cards they're going to sell is the Great Felt Hat Pikachu. And the reason is there's so many copies of it. They're not that attached to it. I have extra copies. I'll put one on the market. But everyone's doing the same thing at the exact same time.
Thinking about it,
and there's 1,000 Great Felt Hat Pikachu listed on eBay at the exact same time.
Right.
The price is going to tank very quickly. Whereas for this Eevee card, because there's only 255 of it, if I list it on eBay, I might be the only one of two that's available at any given time. It's not going to just swing really down.
That's the kind of, so if anything, what we just kind of described, guys, if you're listening, it's like rarity in a way. A lot of people like to put the emphasis on price, like influx, and how if there's a strong demand for a card, even if it has huge supply, it can still be a valuable card because it's in high demand. But when something is rare, which means it has low supply, it does give you a very good like security or strong defense against when the pendulum swings the other way. Because like Jake is saying, like if there's only 250, and dude, that's 255 total in the population. Let's just take 150 of those out that are probably in someone's personal collection.
Yeah, they're never selling them either.
It's not going to hit the market.
Right.
So you're also not going to be the one to sell that card because you know, oh, I've got all these other cards like the Gray Felt Hat Pikachu that I would like to sell before selling this rarer card. And then B, eventually, is someone going to sell it? Like, do you see this online every once in a while? Sure, but it's not going to have such a drastic dip in price. They could probably still ask for, if Pokemon has a pullback, if it's you picked it up for what, 1,600?
Mm-hmm.
They could probably sell it for 1,500 because they know there's some collector out there where even if Pokemon's in a pullback, they go, oh, that's the Eevee I've been hunting for, but like I only see it once in a blue moon.
Yeah, like
I'm gonna have
one
to pay
copy of it sells every month, whereas the Great Felt Hat Pikachu probably like 12 copies sell a day.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So just be aware out there, if you have like one copy of the Great Felt Hat Pikachu inside of your collection, and you're keeping it forever, this probably doesn't matter to you. But if you have a stack of 100, suddenly like, hey, just be careful. That's what we're trying to say, is we're trying to warn you guys of like a potential issue down the line that you may see if you're stacking any particular card that is very high pop, very high demand. It's rising right now, but any slow swing can absolutely crash that down. And we've seen cards collapse in price before.
And I think it's because we have the experience of being in the hobby for longer than maybe people that have just, you know, come in this past like year or two. It's like, I remember this personally happening to me. So I will never make that mistake again, because I remember when grading was backed up. The first slab I ever got was the Hidden Fates Charizard GX, the one on the tin. That's a great example. And I remember picking up that slab for $150, $160 maybe, in a PSA 10. And then when there was a pullback in the market and there were so many 10s available, it became like a $60, $70 card. And it was fine. I still kept the first one I ever had, but it was like, I just remember being like, oh, that was a card where I tried to buy like 6 or 7 or 8 of them at around 150, thinking, oh, this will go up because it's a Charizard. But really, I didn't understand like where the market was at the time, like the state of grading and how many of these were probably backed up when the Hidden Fates reprint came out and everyone just like sent this Charizard off to grade it. Champions Path.
Charizard ETB promo. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the Hidden Fates GX tin one.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. The promo GX Charizard on the tin. That's like, it should be like a $5 card.
Correct.
I would never stack that.
That's a cheaper card than the Champions Path
Right.
one.
So completely fair example. That's a great example.
Yeah.
Tons of people graded it. That's a card I would never even consider stacking.
I mean, I just thought at the time, again, this was when I was like very, very green in the hobby. And so I was just kind of like, oh, it's a Charizard. It should do well. And it was like a cheaper buy-in to collect those than even the Champions Path Secret Rare at the time. Yep. But you look at how rare that is just as a pull and how hard like pull rates are in Champions Path. It makes sense that if you were gonna, obviously now with the information I have in my head, I would just stack a bunch of the shiny Charizard V or even the Rainbow Charizard V Max.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually use an example from Pat Flynn in a recent video of mine, and you'll love this example. So I'm going to tell you the story, okay? During the trading card boom from Logan Paul's era, same as you, okay? He was experiencing a bit of FOMO. So Pat went and bought a base set Charizard, base set unlimited Charizard from eBay. And this was right after Logan Paul did his booster box opening. So prices were through the roof. He bought a raw base set Charizard for $1,500. It was near mint. It was a near mint raw Charizard, all right, for $1,500.
I remember when those prices were that.
Yep. He graded it at PSA. Probably took him a year to get it back.
Yep.
It came back to him as a PSA 7.
Yeah.
Which is not like a terrible grade. People think like, oh, that's a he overshot it. He may have thought he got a 10. No. It was clearly meant to be like a near mint Charizard, and 7 is not bad. Like for an ungraded 1999 card, PSA 7 very normal.
To just find that in the wild, yeah.
Yeah. So in a PSA 7, it's worth $350.
Yeah.
So he got a card that he bought for $1,500, spent a year grading it, or maybe it came back faster because he probably got upcharged for it. So maybe he spent like $100 in just grading fees. And when it came back to him, he held it because he might have experienced like, hey, I'm a Pokemon card collector. I got to have a base set Charizard inside of my collection or else I'm not a true collector. And here's the thing, guys. If you have a single card inside of your collection, you're a Pokemon card collector. Don't feel like you're less of a collector than anyone else because you have less of a collection than someone else.
The original Arita Charizard, though, is one that I feel like a lot of people, like as soon as you get back in,
you feel like you kind of have it in your collection.
You want to have that in your collection.
So he wanted to have it in his collection. He doesn't even like Charizard, is what he said in the short. He doesn't even like Charizard. But the card came back and its value like $350. Even like right now, it hasn't really gone up.
Yeah.
And that shows the market can be really, really high. And I'm sure there was a point in time when any raw Charizard was $1,000 minimum, no matter how garbage it was.
Dude, the first ever, I remember wanting to hold this because we pulled it together. But when me and Eileen were opening up boxes of, or no, it wasn't even boxes. It was like the Pokeball tins that had XY Evo in them.
Yeah.
Back when you could move an XY Evo pack
Charizard,
for $4, just an XY Evo Charizard. And we looked it up. Raw, you could sell that thing for $1,000 at one point.
Yeah.
Right now, a raw XY Evo Zard is like $80, $90, $100. But then if you get it, but that's one of the ones where they printed a lot of XY Evo, right? People always ask, why are XY Evo packs so expensive? And they are, because they're, dude, and you want to talk about something climbing. You know me. So speaking of stuff we've been focused on the last 6 months, I was buying like XY Evo booster boxes.
Yeah, because you can't find them anymore.
Dude, Card Party, I saw maybe 2 and people wanted like $1,600 on it. I'm like, oh my gosh, like just earlier this year at Hawaii PopCon, that's January of this year, I was getting them for like $850 a box.
Yeah. That's not even the highest climber. That's the thing. Like, that sounds shocking, but we're so desensitized into it right now because any card or box going up 100% in 6 months, I'm like, oh yeah.
Well,
that's normal.
Well, no, it's so crazy just also because XY Evo boxes haven't climbed that much or certainly haven't doubled.
Right.
Previous to January in that span of time, because XY has been old even since the beginning of the Sword and Shield era, and you didn't see it climbing like that. But I think people have just been doing box breaks, opening it, and now we're starting to whittle down the supply.
I got one that will shock you.
Oh wait, well here, this is what I was gonna say though. Well, with those boxes, I guess you'll open up the packs. The packs sell for a lot, and the raw Zard, people are like, why are the packs so much if the best hit you can get is only like 80, 90, $100? Sure. But it's the fact that, you know what's a very low pop? That the Charizard and a PSA 10. Mm-hmm. And that still factors into the fact that, like, if you want to get a lot of people do this, they want every Charizard collected in a 10, in a 9. But, you know, if you want it like in a premium, in a PSA 10, that XY Evo Zard always comes like off-centered or has a print line on it.
Yeah, the print line is notorious.
Exactly. So the PSA 10 pop is really, really low. And the only way we can really add to that pop, or if you want a chance at getting a PSA 10 Zard, you'll look at what the near mint copies are online. There's a reason they're on eBay or they're already scuffed, or like you have to kind of...
You can't find a raw copy that is 10 worthy.
10 worthy. They don't exist. So you have to, the packs have a premium on it, because the only way to get a PSA 10 XY Evo Zard now is you pay big money for someone that's selling it, and people are already holding that card close to their chest for their collection, or you got to pull it from an XY Evo pack, and you got to pull it and hope it's 10 worthy, you know?
Yeah, I think the last time I checked on that price, I think the Charizard in a PSA 10 was around $3,000. I haven't looked at it in like 2 or 3 months, so it might have gone up with how the market's been. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 4 or 5.
It could have. We'll look at a sticker, and we'll post a sticker of the current prices of the last solds right here.
Back to my original thought.
Yeah.
I got one that will freak you out.
Okay.
XY Phantom Forces booster boxes. The last sold is over $10,000. $10,000 for an XY Phantom Forces booster box.
I wanted to buy a box of that. So see, again,
that's not even an old box. It's XY. That's the thing.
I'm trying to buy like cards and stuff like that. But I knew about a year ago, I was like, if I want sealed boxes in my collection, I should stop buying cards and just buy sealed boxes. But then the amount of money it takes to save up and just buy a box, and then like that box just sits there. I mean, it's cool. Like, I think an XY Phantom Forces box looks sick, and I think that's why it's climbing so much. Is like there's a market for people that just want it sealed and crispy.
Phantom Forces is the Gengar set, and Gengar's been popping off.
And people will also rip that set constantly to try to hunt the Gengars in the set.
So 2 thoughts on that. The first one is I actually think XY Evolution is actually kind of underrated right now. It's actually shocking that it's only $1,600 a booster buff, considering how iconic it is and how the other boxes in that kind of era is actually priced. I actually think like that sounds kind of cheap to me.
Well, you're right. It's funny because it's like, did they just print that much more of XY Evo than every other set? Like a lot more, right?
They absolutely did, but I think people are just going to remember that there is going to come a time when it actually is super rare. Like it might be right now because of how hard it is. You're telling me it's hard to find one.
It's getting up there.
But if it's that hard to find, people might have to reprogram their mind to think about XY evolutions in a different breath, as in, oh, it's no longer plentiful. It is rare.
Right.
Is that the case? And people haven't gone to that point in their mind yet that it's rare.
Yeah. And then to your point, it is like a reprint set. And we've talked about this when you talked about, to me, the like why people even go in on it. Like I think at the end of the day, what is the most popular set from XY? Phantom Forces is definitely one of them. Flash Fire, that's the Charizard set. But XY Evo is, if you cannot spend $800 on a base set pack and go back and open original base set, you can at least enjoy a lot of those, all of those artworks in XY Evo. And that's what you have to open to kind of get those original 151 Pokemon.
Yeah, and I think about this a little bit when I was at Card Party, is how healthy the hobby is right now. It's actually kind of crazy. Yes, everything is super expensive. It's super hard to find everything. But in terms of a healthy space, it's actually crazy how many kids are into Pokemon card collecting, that I am very confident Pokemon card collecting is going to continue as a hobby for the next 30 years easily.
And they know that, like, base set is important. Like every kid knows like, oh, the Moonbryon is cool, and they like alt arts.
Open like base set booster box at Card Party in 5 years, I think they'll still be opening up like team up booster boxes or Phantom Forces booster boxes once they reach 20 or 30 grand, and it becomes like the premium box to open at an event like this.
I think XY Evo will eventually be that. Like when there's just no more base set to open up, or to crack a box would cost like $80,000 or something. The next best thing that might only cost like
10 grand
7 or
time,
8, or
it
9 or 10
cheaper.
grand, right, would be the XY Evo boxes. So it's like, it kind of hurts me to think like, oh, should I be safe? But I also do feel like there's probably someone out there that's just sitting on like cases of XY Evo, because I remember when it was like, I remember people talking about it. It was like the set that people couldn't pay you to take it from them. They were selling it for like $60 a booster box. And there's got to be people that just have boxes of it that they've forgotten about, or like they were like, no one wants to buy this. And so I think they're just like sitting in storage for a lot of people.
Yeah. People talk about how rare some of these boxes are, and they are rare in comparable to the greater hobby, but they're not that rare as people might think. There's still plenty of booster box cases of these just floating around. Just the other week or two, there was some dude who showed online. He still had 20 booster box cases of boxes from Black and White and Platinum and all those.
I saw that. Wait, do you think that's real?
I think that's real. And that's not surprising to me. I think there's still people out there with 20 cases. These boxes aren't that old. It's only 10 years ago. It wasn't ancient history, basically.
Yeah, I get what you mean by that. I feel like I can't remember what it was. I think there was like a comment like war between like people thinking like, I maybe it was someone's story. I can't remember whose it was, but they were like, I either need to see video evidence or have them kind of go through the cases. Like they felt like it could have been almost like someone just made that photo up for the sake of like, I don't know, shock value or like rage bait. I don't know. I mean,
it doesn't surprise me at all. I believe that there are many, many more cases of these older sets still just sitting in storage or somewhere out there. They're not that rare as people think. It's basically
but it is weird to talk about it in that way. It's both rare and not rare, because you say that, and there is like that guy that proves that, okay, he has that, but also he's one guy out of like a million, right?
Right.
Like he might be that one guy in his entire state, which has like multiple millions of American citizens that could produce that photo. Does that make sense? But then there probably is that guy in Texas, and there is that guy in Florida, and maybe there's like 3 in California. So it's like combined, they all like can add to the market. But at the same time, it's like there's not too many of that guy.
Sure.
If there were, all these boxes would be floating around the market more often.
I guess my point in it is that people talk about it like it's ancient history, like we're wiping dust off of like sarcophagus almost.
That's
when
true.
Really,
but it's not ancient history.
Pokemon card collecting has only been around for 20, 25 years max. And in the span of hobbies, we are still a very young hobby in that we're in its infancy. Like Card Party is brand new. Imagine when Card Party's 20 years or something like that. That's where things start to really get to be in a robust state. Is that baseball cards, comic books, all these other hobbies have been around for 120
over 100 years.
That's a hobby.
I know. And then what's so funny is like that this is the same mindset where now people like haters would be like, oh, Jake, Robo, you guys are shilling Pokemon in a way. But it's true. Like what you're saying is like, if everyone gets in now, like some people feel like
it's too late.
They're too late to get into Pokemon. But in the grand scheme of things, if you really zoom out, Pokemon's still in its we're just about to celebrate the 30th anniversary. Like imagine the 50th anniversary.
The 100th anniversary.
If you have stuff from like now when it's the 50th anniversary, you'll be like a million. I mean, maybe not a millionaire, or maybe a millionaire, like you'll have enough money, or your collection will be able to like support you. You know what I mean? And I feel like with us saying this though, it just makes everyone go, oh, everything is cheap right now. Buy Pokemon. And then that just makes the prices go up more. And it's kind of like, but it's like commenting on it, like produces the self-fulfilling prophecy. And you want the self-fulfilling prophecy to
I'm just gonna say that
to some degree.
we're going through our growing pains right now. It's like Pokemon hasn't
definitely.
settled down as a hobby yet. There will come a point in time when prices are much more standardized, but we're not there yet. Things are still kind of wild, and that's the point of it, is that it's such a new hobby that things are kind of like the wild west right now, where stuff can go up, stuff can go down, because the hobby hasn't figured out where it wants to be on certain things yet. There will come a point in time when, oh yeah, we know exactly what that card's price is. As soon as it releases, we just know based on the history of the hobby, but we're not there yet. That's the point, is that it's fun and exciting because we get to discover it together as a community and where things land.
And you know what's interesting about that? Pokemon has the ability that I always hear this argument from like sports card collectors that think like sports cards have the longevity, like upper hand, because they're based on real people, but actually that gives them the lower hand. And I never understood why they think the opposite. Like Pikachu can always be like reinvented, like you look at Captain's Pikachu in the new like Pokemon anime, right? Like in Horizons, it's like kids are always going to grow up with Pikachu. I find it actually odd that like, you know, baseball cards were the first like kind of cards to come out, right? Right now, baseball isn't even like the top 3 sports, like most popular sports. It used to be like America's pastime. And even just in our, in like one single generation, it's kind of fallen off where, you know, football is definitely more popular. Basketball is more popular.
Understood in sports?
What?
And I'm a trading card collector, so I've been in the hobby, but basically I never understood rookie cards. Was that lots of people collect rookie cards of new prospects, and they root for these prospects, and I hate that, because basically I understand why it's popular, but rookies can break their legs at any time or do drugs at any time, and they just disappear like that.
Correct.
That's never going to happen in the world of Pokemon cards, where if a card is cool, it stays kind of cool kind of forever in my world, where I don't have to worry about Pikachu breaking its leg and then not appearing in any future sets.
Right. Or Pikachu doing something weird where it like taints the image of Pikachu. Yeah. I know what you mean. Well, I was even speaking like beyond that. What I think is interesting is like Babe Ruth, for example. If you have like a rookie Babe Ruth, or I think like, you know, like Willie Mays, or like just like old school baseball players, that if these cards go to auction, like I guess just older people have more money because they've been on the planet
that's
longer.
literally
like,
how it works.
They'll still bid insane amounts on these older cards. But I can't imagine, like, the nostalgia factor to them is like they must have they grew up with like seeing Babe Ruth play. Like they know he's like the GOAT of baseball. So there's a price in that. But 100 years from now, like that old guy that appreciates that will be dead.
Correct.
And then like there's no way he could maybe tell stories to like his son or daughter, and then like that son or daughter could tell stories to like
I'll say this. I feel like in 100 years, I don't think he cares what happens to his cards.
No,
the value.
But that's my point. Can the value keep staying high when like we have to as a society, or like baseball as a society has to teach the younger generation, oh, you're gonna pay $4 million for this Babe Ruth. But I think eventually there's a whole generation of kids that are growing up now watching, you know, Speed and Kai Cenat and like
or space
have different
baseball.
heroes.
It's completely different now.
They don't care about baseball. So it's like they don't care about Babe Ruth. They never watched Babe Ruth growing up. They never got to see him play.
That's how some hobbies and collectibles die.
No, exactly. And eventually the price has to come down because the people that would value it at that just don't see that value. Whereas I guess with Pokemon, it's kind of like kids will always appreciate the Pikachu. Kids will always appreciate the Charizard.
Because it's hard for me to think of like a franchise that lasts forever. Like if Pokemon lasts for 100 years, that's already fantastic. You know, I won't go that far. I do think like for the next 30 years, I think Pokemon's healthy, but I can't predict further.
No, you can predict further.
You think Pokemon's gonna be around for 100 years?
There's already a future prediction marker. So when I've talked to I made this point about how that's how Pokemon beats sports cards in that longevity fashion, right? The upper hand is there. Now, no one can predict the future. I get that I can't definitively say if I'm right or wrong on this, but I think you have something like Pokemon Go, prove my point, where, dude, that was glorified paper toss. In a way, it still is, but just because they got catching Pokemon and the feeling of you got to catch them all still tugged on the heartstrings of nostalgia, it got everyone on their phone outside running around trying to. So as technology advances, like you brought up space baseball, that there could be a sport that comes out that just makes all other sports that have been invented irrelevant.
Yeah.
The thing with Pokemon and being the #1 top media franchise is they can infuse Pokemon with anything. Like if people don't care about
I get that. I'm not saying
TCG,
Pokemon will disappear in 30 years, but I can see a world where in 30 years it's no longer the most popular thing in the world. Let's say that.
No, what would be the most popular thing then?
I don't know. It would have to be created. Let's say a new Digimon or a new Pokemon or something come out that eclipses it.
It won't eclipse it, because if there is a new so that's the next thing that I think happens that just makes Pokemon even be that much more stable as like a collectible asset, but also just it's the #1 media franchise. Like anything that could be created in a new medium space to make it popular has to use some new thing, or it has to be novel, right? Now let's think of virtual reality, right? If Digimon gets created and we all get a digital companion, before a new idea of creatures that can be done that way is done, or if it is being done, Pokemon can also just use that technology, and we're all just going to have
the idea
Pokemon will be Digimon.
Well, basically the idea of it is that someone in charge would have to be bad at business. But that happens all the time. Is obviously podcasting hasn't been around, but I almost imagine a world where the Rob and Jake of 25 years ago said, you know what? Nothing can ever be Disney. Disney will stay relevant forever.
I see what you're saying.
And yeah, I see the world.
So you're right. And that's why I leave the caveat of like, of course, I can't definitively say this is 100% accurate. So I'll say as long as there's no bad business, which can't be promised. If someone like takes over the Pokemon company and they're horrible with business,
they make the bad decision.
Yeah, they'll run it into the ground. Perfect example of this is Blockbuster.
Yes,
Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix.
And
if Blockbuster
but here's
just
the thing,
had
that they bought
future
Netflix,
vision,
they might have also ran Netflix into the ground. Who knows? Stuff happens.
I see what you're saying, but I mean, ultimately what killed Blockbuster though was because Netflix became a thing. The fact that Netflix didn't think they were going to be a thing and then streaming became a thing, all the same people that did that at Netflix would have just done it it would have just been Blockbuster, right? Because Netflix would have been nothing because they would have bought it, consumed it. But Blockbuster did the bad business move, didn't take Netflix's offer, which was super generous. And then Netflix went full streaming and then Blockbuster died. So it's like, I feel like Pokemon would have to do something that crazy. But when you really go look at the facts, if you look at that like decision, why would they not? It's just such a no-brainer to have like not bought Netflix at that time.
All right. Rob is sticking with the Pokemon Jesus analogy, and he's still very bullish on the world of Pokemon. I'm also very bullish. I'm just not at the same level bullish. I would say yes. I mean, the hobby is still going to be sticking around for a long time. We're going to have this podcast around for the next 20 years. Card Lounge in space in 20 years. Better watch out. It's going to happen.
Card Lounge is definitely still going to be around because we're going to keep pumping out episodes for you guys.
Episode 2000, Card Lounge in space, happening in 20 years. Be there. Thank you guys. Appreciate you for watching the Card Lounge. Be sure to subscribe. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers. Definitely appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks for lounging with us.
Bye, everyone.